sure it wasn't on purpose. It's funny. Everybody ready to go?
Yes, sir.
All right, we will go ahead and call to order. This is City Council work session and regular meeting for Thursday, July 21st, 2022. It is 6 p.m. Lindsay, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Lester. He was on there.
He is on. Might be muted.
David, you're muted if you can hear me.
Can you unmute yourself or no?
We'll start again. David, Lester.
Can't hear you, man.
He's unmuted.
Yeah.
But, okay. Baker,
Here.
Reba.
Here.
Cool,
Here.
Livingston. Here. Mayor Tom Phillips.
I am here as well. We do have quorum. So we will move on. Item number 2 is Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance with me?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Item 3, approval of the agenda. Would anybody like to move any of the consent agenda items to the regular agenda? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion. Second.
Motion by Rivas, seconded by Livingston. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. Motion carries. Item 4 is a dedicated work session. So this is a dedicated work session between Mayor and City Council, and work session is expected to last much less than an hour. And we'll swing directly into the regular council meeting when this work session ends. So item A, Elliot's here to talk about temporary sign code enforcement. And before you start, Elliot, I'd like to note that I've been hearing a lot about the diligence of enforcement being done by community development, and we appreciate your work.
Glad to hear.
All right.
So that's part of why I didn't get any materials to you guys, but ahead of the time, ahead of the meeting, I wasn't 100% sure what I was going to be talking about until the last few days, because the temporary signage update is positive because of the amount of enforcement and compliance that we've seen in the community. So that's fantastic. So Luke, if you just want to go to slide 2, these are just kind of the things I'm going to talk about. I'm going to go over kind of the definition of temporary signage, the relationship that temporary signage has in community development and what we do regarding it, and then also point out some non-compliant signage that kind of fits into the category of temporary signage in a way. My goal tonight is not to point out individual signs per se, but I'll get to that when I get to it, followed up by a question regarding enforcement for you guys. So my first exhibit here is the definition word for word from our zoning ordinance in our sign regulations on what a temporary sign is. Mostly what it deals with here is pretty self-explanatory. I provided some visual examples. We're talking construction, finance, real estate, political, portable signs, banners, pennants, inflatable signs, valence or advertising displays, cloth canvas, fabric, cardboard, wallboard, you name the material, with or without frames. But the key point on there, that last clause intended to be displayed for a short period of time only. Following this definition in the temporary sign code are the expectations for temporary signs and the approval processes for how they're supposed to work. In the city of Norwalk, they are permitted. We can go to the next page there. They're permitted, but with a sign permit. The way that we revised the regulations for temporary signage in the city relatively recently is that they're allowed for up to 2 10-day periods per year. Most of the time we see those go back to back from most temporary sign applicants. So grand opening for a business, we can double that at my discretion, which awesome firepower from my own office chair. And then community events, we can put it up for 30 days. And community events is either sponsored by the city or whoever. The way I see it is if important people in the city are involved, that counts as a community event, and then some. So a little bit of history, at least as far as recent activity for signs. I did a presentation about signage in general at the Chamber of Commerce 3 months ago to the day. And it wasn't necessarily about temporary signage, but just signage in general. There was about 50 to 70 business leaders there. So a lot of the community heard what I had to say in regards to that. As the temperatures have warmed up and signs have been getting placed around the city on a temporary basis, we've seen a lot better compliance following that little session I did at the chamber. I'm not saying that correlation equals causation, but I like to think that it had some impact. So that's good news. One thing that we do in community development is about once a month, we'll have Benji mostly go and do sign sweeps in the right of way. So the way the state code and the municipal code works, no signs in the right of way. That's inside of the sidewalk, middle of the street, got to be a clear zone. And we're the enforcement arm for that. So we're pretty diligent in that regard, and seen a drastic improvement in the number of signs that are not being put there. So that's kind of the update. And now,
Sports teams.
except for, I don't know what you're talking about.
I think, I was gonna say, I like those. I like them. That
A lot of people
lets us
like
know
it.
what's
It's good
going on.
community.
That's, yeah.
Yeah,
So when Benji does a sweep, does he keep those and do people come and get them, or do you just?
so typically we just take them to the storeroom and then call the phone numbers that are usually on them and say, hey, we've got your sign. Here are the rules about temporary signage, please follow them.
Okay.
Sometimes there are repeat offenders, sometimes there aren't. And there are exemptions to the explicit temporary signage rules, like real estate signs, political signs, those sorts of things. Usually we were just telling them, keep them out of the right of way.
Yeah.
And you're good, because they don't
Especially
need them.
intersections. They're everywhere.
Yep,
Yeah.
Beardsley and Highway 28 is the biggest bugaboo, at least there. Chatham, sometimes with Hubble, putting stuff in for the legacy development, and then also North Ave. So real estate agents change all the time. So we try to just tell every new one, here's what we expect. So I don't think we dispose of signs too often. They usually end up back in the hands of whoever put them there. Any other questions on anything I've mentioned thus far? Let's go to the next slide here. As I mentioned before, I'm not trying to call anybody out with my examples here, but this is all leading up to a question that I have for council about enforcement, right? So every example in the next few slides is illegal in some way. And I don't want to, again, get too surgical with this, but one of those signs is in the right of way. One of those signs is advertising something that is not on the premises, which is why I've listed off premises advertising as a sign type there. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Mr. Luke. Another example of off premises advertising, and this one is has a lot of community event type information on it. Technically, if you go through our sign code, these would all require temporary sign permits. If we go to the next slide.
And then
please.
they could only be there for
20 days. And what tends to happen is it's the same sign year after year with updated,
Do they have,
Dates,
do
right.
any of them have the temporary sign permit?
not to my knowledge. no.
Okay.
Same thing with these. Those being on premises advertising, slight difference. Next, Luke. And then same thing here. So one of the popular things in the retail structures is to have, now open for business signs. That's a grand opening type of thing. Those are the ones that can be out the longest. We've had, I think, 3 grand opening temporary sign permits in the last 6-ish months. All of those have come up and then come down. The ones that are still up are the ones who did not consult the zoning administrator about the sign rules, right? And we can go to the next slide, Mr. Luke. And then there's some signs that are expressly unpermitted in the zoning ordinance, and sometimes they've been there since before the zoning administrator started working for the city, which leads to enforcement quandary in many regards. Okay. Next, Luke. Now, far be it from the city employee to ignore our own signage time to time, but there is no provision in the sign code to say the city doesn't have to follow its own rules. So I feel like it's healthy to point that out with no caption. Luke, next. So all of that being what it is, we're going to keep up those sign sweeps in the right of way. Those have worked really well and we've got a good response from it. Same thing with the temporary sign permits. I'm being extremely explicit when talking about the regulations whenever I get an application with folks. And then I guess my question for you guys is when it comes to some of the examples that you've seen tonight of existing non-compliant signage, what are your expectations for community development on enforcing sign ordinance?
So I have a couple thoughts. One is, can we amend our ordinance or regulation to allow, for instance, a 2-week sign for activities sign, right? So, can we, maybe we don't require a fee, maybe you just got to tell us you're going to do it. When you start, you get 2 weeks. And then if you're not in compliance, then there's some kind of penalty. That would cover the cities, posting of the soccer signups, right? All the youth teams and their signups. I think that I don't like the idea of having a rule on the books that we don't enforce. So I think if we modify it to allow for something like that. My other question is, can't we put up in like that fairway access where there are always 100 unsightly and ununiform signs? Can we put up like some kind of a community board where you can post your thing so people can see it, right? I'm not saying like a little 2-inch letter board, right? But a big board where people can see it. Can't the city, or maybe we get some of these organizations to sponsor a sign or something, so it's a permanent fixture, and then people can put their signs up there, so it just doesn't look like such chaos. Those are my 2 thoughts.
Is fairway stuff on private property?
That's technically on O'Reilly's lot.
Right, so it's
So
not
yes.
in a right of way. Why would,
It's technically off premises advertising.
okay,
So the way that the sign code works, only O'Reilly is supposed to be able to put a temporary sign there.
and so they ask O'Reilly if they can put me in.
Yeah, now if O'Reilly gives them permission, they can still get it.
The majority of those are nonprofits. I have a soft spot for
Yeah,
nonprofits,
right.
but I don't.
And I want them to be able
They're
to do
ugly.
it, but I want to put it
They're
in some
really
kind of
ugly.
uniform way, I think. That's mine.
Maybe like a 4-panel
Columbus,
slot
BBS,
sign that can be swapped.
all of that.
Yeah.
I was just curious.
The only issue you might get into with that, I mean, I got no problem with the idea, but it's whose signs get to go on.
What?
And
Okay, but
Whose
whose signs
signs
get
would
to
get
go
to
there
go
now?
on?
Oh, yeah.
because, there's a plethora of signs there right now, I think. And so I don't know how big you'd have to make that maybe in order to accommodate all those signs,
Yeah, that would.
And so who would be the decider? What would be the criteria? And you know what I mean? One thing though that I was thinking, when you were talking about this is, to make sure that the public's informed. And I think that's good that you did that presentation. There were probably a lot of people that weren't aware of it. I think you and I had a conversation a while ago when my daughter's flower shop first opened up. I wasn't aware of the ordinance on signs and how it worked, right? I should have looked, it's my fault for not looking. But I'm thinking that if I was that way, there may be other people out there that are that way. Some of this might just be the result of ignorance, not being informed. I don't know particularly how a person can inform folk beyond taking the information out to the public or posting it on websites, including it on water bills that people don't always read, things like that. But I think that a lot of it could be due to just ignorance, right? That they just don't know.
Right, especially because it's been done all along, so.
Yeah, that's right. I
Right,
mean,
I'm just doing what everybody else does.
yeah,
kind
these
of
other
thing.
signs are out there all the same line too. I like the idea of an information board, I really do. But I don't know how Would you make such an animal maybe limited to nonprofits?
Well, if, for instance, it goes where right now I'm talking about all those signs being, that's O'Reilly's property. O'Reilly gets to say now who goes there. I mean, unless we put it in some public area,
Right.
then that's a different question of who gets to say what goes there. And I have no idea. It seems like O'Reilly says anybody can, but I don't know who they turned down.
Yeah.
And again, right, it's just I don't have a proposal yet. It's just an
Right.
off the cuff
No,
thought. How can we clean it up a little?
I like your idea. I'm just concerned about the mechanics.
Right, agreed.
And the same, I mean, I like the idea. I just don't know about the execution because everybody's gonna want a different color sign, different material, different font. They're not gonna change it on time. We're gonna have old information. We can have 8 businesses or 8 entities want to advertise an event. You've only got 4 slots.
But don't we have all those problems now?
Well, not for a signboard. But I
No,
don't
but
want
we have
to-
all of those problems. That's everything that's there now. Different sizes, different shapes, people leaving them up too long, right?
So
I mean, so at least we would have some order.
So,
Sorry.
so any kind of board that goes there would have to follow our regular sign ordinance as far as I don't want another digital sign. Please don't want another digital sign.
Agreed.
But it's like the sign for Beautiful Reflections Salon that could be improved. But I just don't know how you do it to make it uniform, to make it well-maintained and to not look trashy. It's a great idea. I just don't know how you execute it.
So kind of the final point that I'll hit on is what precipitates this is because I get questions all the time about what people can do for signage. And they'll point to illegal signs and ask if they can do that. And I'll say, no. And then they'll ask me, well, why are they doing it? Right. And if it's been there for 5 years, I don't have a great answer. So when it comes to situations like that, you guys want me calling these guys up or sending them letters and saying, hey, get this out of here?
I do.
I do.
Because that's what I want to do.
That's what I want you to do.
Okay.
I think you have to treat everybody the same.
Yeah, consistency.
Professionally, of course. But
Is there-
Elliot,
Oh, there you
I
go.
would, sorry, my 2 cents would be is that I like Jackie's idea of adding that tweak of the 2 weeks or whatever to the sign ordinance. I'm not a big fan of a community board. I don't think we can make that uniformly work how I like it, but I don't think it'll work. Maybe that's my mindset on that right now. But for this, I think you should be sending letters to anybody that's been allowed to do an illegal sign for, say, multiple years, maybe give them 60 days to get it squared away and taken care of, rather than just saying, hey, take care of it. It's got to be down in 5 days or 10 days, but give them time and tell them, give them what the rules are. But I think creating a temporary event sign exemption makes sense. So.
Unless you want to say the city attorney says it's got to be done tomorrow.
Oh. Jim can give me my opinion on that.
I think David makes a good point, you know, on how we get there.
Yes.
But I think the important thing is to get there, and treat everybody exactly the same. So then if we need to change something, it's a question of us changing the mechanics of it, or, you know what I mean? If there's a problem. But as long as we do that, I think we'll probably be fine with wherever we end up.
And you said there are certain rules for, different rules for realtors and some of that. Are they allowed at the intersections? You know,
As
open
long as they're
house?
out of the right of way, yeah.
Well, they're not out of the right of way.
No,
They're
they're
on
not.
the intersection.
And that's what we probably pick up more than anything else. Right. Besides.
So no.
And
one's
that's-
allowed.
And that tends to be like the broken window syndrome. One goes in
Right.
and then you see 4 or 5 go right along.
So half a dozen.
Mhm. Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
One community sign, I mean, a lot of those events are on public property. You could put some park that says upcoming events. That would be a control. If they've got a park reserved, so you could do 4th of July, do our big events. Just have it as almost a public statement on our park saying upcoming events, and you just have the dates, and that would also limit just anybody doing it. You said have reserved certain times, so you can still have a good advertisement for Fourth of July, for concerts that are in the park.
And on that soccer one, they have it, they set it up all the way to the east of that. What part is the right of way? How far does the right of way go from the street in number of feet?
So it's usually a foot towards the building from the sidewalk. Where it starts.
There isn't a sidewalk there. So in absence
And
of
that's a good
that,
question. It varies if there's no sidewalk sometimes.
not next to the, that's the old Quick Trip. curb.
Residential areas, it's usually 16 feet from the back.
So on Highway 28, I'm thinking that soccer thing is out of the right of way and in the city's lease space.
It's in the right of way.
It is,
I
okay.
think so.
I thought it was all the way to the right.
It, all the way to the right, still in the right of way,
How far does it go for the right of way?
to the
10
parking
feet,
lot.
15, all the way to the parking lot?
Yes.
That
Oh,
makes
yes,
sense.
it does.
According to the, all the way to the parking. Actually, a little bit into the parking lot, but I'm assuming that the line might be a little off.
Is that a 25-foot right of way?
Well, that's like 100 and some odd.
Well, from the curb to the line, it's about 50.
I did
But
not expect.
let's say that one of those churches like the free clinic as an example, they advertise. If they wanted to have an off premises sign, but they have to have a permanent sign put someplace, get a permit for it. Is that the way it would work?
I'd have to cross-reference this here code there, but off premises permanent sign.
Permit. Did you say permanent or permit?
You have to have a
Permanent.
permanent sign to have a temporary
Well,
permit.
you could, but it would need to be a monument sign. So it would take a lot more investment to put it up.
Yeah,
Whereas we have
But it-
very
it could-
strict sign codes for
It could
monuments.
be done in compliance if they wanted to spend the money.
Yeah, I suppose.
Are off premises permanent signs allowed? City?
I'm not sure. That's the thing. If they are, they have to be
But
monument
That's
signs.
my
I
question.
question that. I don't think we wouldn't.
The code is weird because it talks about off premises permanent signs as billboards. So it's one of those things where it talks about off premises signs, but they're talking about billboards specifically. So probably not in that case.
I'm
So-
pretty confident that you guys are correct. It's not allowed as a permanent sign.
Yeah.
So, question. Do you, having done now or overseen this enforcement for a little while, do you feel like there are some changes that you would like to see made to this this regulation?
I think we can lengthen the temporary sign permit length. A lot of people ask for 1 to 2 months. And right now we have 20 days a year.
Okay, and so then my next question is, do you feel like you have enough direction right now of a couple things that generally the council agrees we'd like you to look into, and then maybe do you feel like you could make that change and submit that to us?
Yes.
Awesome.
One thing I will add, because Elliot has specifically, him and Luke and well, Tony, any of our enforcement staff have come to my office and politely say, I'm about ready to send this letter, whatever it might be, and usually it's enforcement. The biggest fear of staff, I feel the same way, I completely understand where Elliot and other staff are coming from, is if we go to do enforcement and then somewhere on the backside, there's not the support of the elected officials. So I don't know about you, but what I'm hearing loud and clear from this group is they appreciate the enforcement and they're behind you 100%.
I'll go get people. And if they're behind me, then thanks. It makes me feel a lot better about printing that
As long
letter.
as it's even handed and everybody's
Right.
Yeah.
If I could just add on to what Luke mentioned, we do appreciate your guys' direction on that because it is tricky at times on when we enforce things and when we don't. The way we've done this in the past was, complaint based, and people don't tend to complain about signs unless they're like the ones right on the intersection. So it's good to get some direction for that, and we'll move forward with some stuff and bring some ordinances back to you.
Awesome.
Consistency.
Consistency is key.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you. Elliot.
thank you.
Thank you, Elliot.
Okay, item 5, welcome guest public comment. We'll open it up for any public comment. This will be for non-agenda items. We'll give you a 3-minute time limit, and we can't take action on those tonight since they aren't on the agenda. Also, if you'd like to comment on any item that's in the consent agenda, now would be the time. Art, you're the only public here, so. All right, sounds good. Item 6, consent agenda. We have June 30th, 2022 minutes of the special city council meeting. We have July 7th, 2022 minutes of the regular city council meeting. We have expenditures. We have a renewal class C liquor license with outdoor service and Sunday sales for Outskirts, September 1st, 2022 to August 31st, 2023. We have resolution to approve pay estimate number 3 to Sternquist Construction for Sunset Drive, Iowa Highway 28 and North Avenue intersection improvements project. A resolution setting August 4th, 2022 for a public hearing regarding a zoning amendment to change 1010 Sunset Drive from R2 1 and 2 family residential to C3 highway service commercial. A resolution approving new job descriptions for chief building official, building inspector 1 and building inspector 2. We have resolution accepting the certificate of completion for the Windflower and Sharon Heights neighborhood drainage improvements project and release of retainage to Progressive Structures. A resolution approving pay estimate number 8 to SM Hintages and Sons Incorporated for Northwest Service Trunk Sewer Extension Project. We have resolution to approve purchase of a track loader. We have street closure application for City of Norwalk Color Run, July 25th, 2022. A resolution approving intergovernmental agreement for the operations of Image Trend Joint Fire and EMS Records Management System by the cities of Clive, Grimes, Johnston, Norwalk, Urbandale, Waukee, and Windsor Heights. We have resolution approving updated fire paramedic job description. We have some monthly reports and correspondence. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Livingston, seconded by Reva.
Baker.
Lindsay, would you call roll?
Yes.
Okay, you can make that one.
Did Reva say?
Huh?
Did she?
Yeah.
Oh. We'll
I
go
heard
back.
I heard her just.
Okay, maybe he's
tidbit
in mine.
before Brian.
We'll go back to Reva. My apologies. Councilmember Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reva,
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, motion carries. Item 7, we have old and new business for consideration, discussion, and possible action. Item A is resolution authorizing and approving a loan agreement providing for the issuance of $18,935,000 general obligation or dollars general obligation corporate purpose bond series 2022A and providing for the levy of taxes to pay the same. So this resolution approves the loan agreement to provide funding for our CIP projects. Gene, you got anything to add?
Just this is the final step. This will authorize that loan agreement with Janney Montgomery Scott LLC. And we did actually get a premium, which I mentioned last time. We're recommending that the TIF portion of that go toward Norwalk Central. We've got some expenses that with inflation and construction materials were over. And then 770 of it go towards street infrastructure. Wayne, we have Golden Valley and some other streets in there for next year. And those are concrete prices are kind of high through the roof, actually. So we're recommending that as part of this, but be the final step. We're going to send letters to banks for deposit investment rates to see what we can get. We've got about 6 on the list, but we're going to send that out next week. Other than that, that's all I have.
All right. Any questions or discussion comments from council?
Motion.
Second.
All right, motion by Baker, second by Cool. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reva,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
All right, that motion carries. Item 7B is resolution approving the city attorney contract. So this is a renewal of the current contract, and this contract was also drafted with the idea that the city will move from contracted services to full-time employment. We did put this out for an RFP, and we only got one response, which was Jim. I will add that Jim has been a solid resource for Norwalk. His history, knowledge, and overall skill in Norwalk municipal law is unmatched. This played a role in our decision to not pursue a more rigorous search. Please notice that this contract ends on December 31st of this year. At that time, Jim will transition to full-time employment, and with that full-time employment agreement coming to council at our August 4th meeting. So Luke or Jim, anything to add? Any discussion or comments, questions from council?
I'm just delighted to see Jim move toward a full-time job. I think it's great. I've known him for a lot of years.
That's right.
All right.
Tell you, my wife's looking forward to it too.
Okay. Any public comment?
I thought he was on full time.
Well, he's just contracted.
Second.
Motion by Rivas, seconded by Livingston. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Riva.
Yes.
Cool,
Yeah,
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 7C is a resolution to approve the first reading of an ordinance to amend the municipal code of the city of Norwalk, Iowa by amending chapter 103 relating to the regulation of industrial wastewater and commercial wastewater. So remember at our last meeting, we had an ordinance change that was done via resolution, and that was a pretty unusual occurrence for us. Well, it's just a coincidence that this ordinance change comes to council in the form of a resolution. So we're following guidance from the WRA on this change. It's going to allow them to file and track all of the WRA communities changes. What we're changing is the ability for the WRA to adequately cover costs of enforcement. Lindsay, Wayne, well, Wayne's not here. Lindsay, Luke, did I get that right? And anything to add?
The only thing I would add is that at the third reading of the ordinance, so at the August 18th meeting, there will be another resolution that will ask you to pass of the fees. The reason that's not going to go into the code is because the city doesn't charge those fees, the WRA does. And I guess with that said, the next two readings will also be asked to be approved by resolution.
Okay.
Per the WRA.
All right. Questions, discussion, comments from council?
I was just going to comment that this is an important enabling ordinance for the WRA, and it's deals with things that are becoming a more and more serious topic as far as the pollution of wastewater and drainage water across the state. I know the nitrites had the big focus, about a year ago. And, but in view of the clean air, clean water, federal regulations, the EPA, and that sort of thing, we really need to look after our ship and get it in order. And this does that. I know that the sooner the better as far as they're concerned with the passage of the enabling ordinances. So I don't know if it's possible or not, but maybe next time it comes up on the agenda, if it's possible to post it in such a way as if the council feels like it, they could waive a third reading and just get it through.
All right.
Anyway,
Lindsay, would you make a note of that?
Will do.
All right. Anything else? I get a motion to approve the resolution.
motion.
Second.
Motion by Cool, seconded by Riva. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Riva,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 7D is final reading of an ordinance creating a new chapter 89, cross connections and backflow prevention to the Norwalk Municipal Code. So we passed second reading of this ordinance at our last meeting. Need to have these backflow prevention devices installed and in working order to avoid having water flow back into our drinking water distribution system. Any discussion, comments from council? I get a motion to approve the final reading.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Livingston, seconded by Riva. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Lizzie, would you call roll?
Councilmember Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Riva.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 8, council inquiries and staff updates. Luke Paris, we'll let you go first with the comp plan update.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to give you guys a quick update. We did have our comp plan open house on Thursday last week. May have been the reason why I'm not there tonight. I don't know. But it was pretty good. I had about 100 people there. A lot of folks that were from the rural part of Warren County outside of city limits. A lot of folks concerned about potential city annexation and what that means for them as their city grows in that direction. So had some good discussions with them, making some changes based on some of those comments and some things we can put in there. Really what I tried to get across to some of the concerned residents is the city's not, we're not interested in going out and doing like a large annexation of a bunch of people's property that don't want to be in the city. You know, we're going to be strategic about our annexations. For the most part, we're going to do it when somebody brings a project that we want to have in the city that needs our services. And, you know, I can say that till I'm blue in the face and people will believe it if they want to or not. So that was really what a lot of the discussion was about that night. It was a pretty good meeting though. Had some good feedback. Also participated in Front Porch Norwalk the night before and had some good discussions with residents about comp planning and future of the city. So happy to take any questions. I guess next steps are we need to do a final steering committee meeting to set some draft priorities on the goals and objectives, and then we'll do public hearings at planning commission and then city council. So happy to take any questions.
Doesn't sound like there's any questions on that. You got anything else?
That's it. I'm good.
All right, thank you. Luke, Kelsey.
Just one item. The Des Moines Airport did an update presentation on how they're doing with their terminal expansion process. And this is their 14 gate project. It is, believe it or not, about 20% high on what some of the previous numbers, which what we're seeing with inflationary impacts is in about that 20 to 25% range. So certainly that project is falling in line with many others. They've secured about 340 million, which is great. It's a big number. Total project cost is about 580 million. So they still have a little bit of a gap to cover. The benefit is they have this project phased. So even though it's a large scale project, with the funds they do have, they can continue to proceed and knock off some of those first phases. So it's good to see the progress and very appreciative that they're continuing to keep this, all the metro communities informed of their progress.
Thank you. Jack.
So I have several things actually. So a couple weeks ago, the Icon Water Trails group took a float on Beaver Creek in Johnston. It was interesting because it wasn't yet open to the public. There were two people from the DNR, the mayor of Johnston, and then a bunch of people from Icon on the float. It's great. If you've never floated on Beaver Creek, it's fantastic. And after that, several of the DNR guys said, yep, this is perfect, open it up. And so they opened it up and now the general public can do it. They're doing another sponsored float. The whole point is to try and get the communities a little more excited about everything that really is available in the metro to be able to take advantage of outside. In addition, Ankeny is now finally getting on board to participate. Van Meter wants to participate and Carlisle wants to participate. So the bigger the group, I think the ultimately the better for the whole connectivity. That is the ultimate goal of this group. So anyway, I think that's all going very well. As you know, Holly and Kirk and I were in Kosovo. And it was really an amazing trip for a lot of reasons. It was, I feel like, the most targeted, objective trip we've had. I think that it was the most productive trip we've had. Holly posted, we did over 30 meetings. And I think that they were very productive. And I think that we're really close to having some really positive outcomes. I spent most of my time with Holly, meeting different businesses and members of the government to try and facilitate some economic development and some other deals. Holly, of course, you all know this, Holly was a rock star, amazing. I commented in one of the meetings that technically I'm her boss, but I played second fiddle to her and was more than happy to be in her shadow the entire time because she was fantastic. We did not spend very much time with Kirk. When he got there, he pretty much was swept away to go do his law enforcement initiative. But I want to say this, that Kim Heidemann, who now works for the consulate and used to be in charge of Iowa Sister States, who puts the whole thing together. She had said that if Kirk and I think there were two other men that were trying to put together this peer training exchange. Kim said if they don't get a no, then that will be a ton of progress. And not only did they not get a no, they got a yes, and they got a let's take it to the next step. So super impressed with Kirk and the work that he did and how he represented the city and law enforcement.
Great. Thank you. Right. Lindsay.
A couple things, just a reminder, excuse me, that August 9th is the strategic planning work session with Liz Hansen. We'll have another meeting obviously before that, but wanted to remind you of that. Working on getting some stuff ready for our auditors. They'll be here, I believe, the first week of August. Is that correct, Jean?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. And have been working a lot on our new phone system and trying to get that up and running with Tim Geyer. That's all.
Thank you. Jean Strable.
Good evening. Over at the library, we are wrapping up the summer programs and putting together a lot of fun things for the fall in terms of programs and back to school initiatives and some partnerships. And we are going to have our first Warren County Public Library joint booth at the fair. So if you happen to be going to the fair next week, stop in and see us at the library. You'll probably find me at the booth. So hope to see you.
Is that going to be in the Varied Industries building?
We are in the Morton building.
Okay.
Oh, you're talking Warren County Fair.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yes, Warren County.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Thank you. Holly.
I would just echo what Jackie said about the trip. It was very valuable, and I'm appreciative that council has allowed us to go a couple of times now, because it did take those first few times of just making that the introduction with the government and our sister city and the relationship building and all of that. It seems fluffy, but it takes that to build up that trust. And now when we go, I mean, they, like she said, the rockstar thing, they really think these Americans coming over are going to open up this whole world for them in business. And so, and they're ready to roll out the red carpet for American businesses to come there and vice versa. And we have several interested in building in Norwalk now. One in particular is this Instabuilt company that they have a location in Austin, Texas. But we got really far in that project, and we're working with some local developers on that and may end up doing something in Norwalk Central. But yes, just very tangible outcomes from that, very exciting. And we're all impressed with Kirk. He just had to go. We just had to ditch each other and go our separate ways because we were on a business and government mission. And so we even peeled off with a bigger group. They got to go do some probably a little bit more fun stuff and some of the touring and a lot of the education pieces. And we just said, we're doing business when we're here, and we were out on our own. So we only saw Kirk a few times, but I heard a lot of very positive feedback as well on what he did with that project. And that's a really big deal for Norwalk too, because on the Kosovo side, it's their national, and I won't talk about it, he will, but it's their national police academy. So it's a big deal for Norwalk to be in charge of this. I'll let him talk about it. And then Jackie, they were very impressed with her too. And especially when we toured an ammunition facility And they're like telling us or showing us all this stuff, how you reload ammunition. She's like, yeah, I know. She's like named off all the parts of the bullet, and they're like, whoa. Yeah, with prosecutor or something. But it was great. It was a great time. So.
All right, thanks. Gene Kelly.
Just wrapping up fiscal year 22 with a lot of reports. And as Lindsay mentioned, the auditors will be here early August. I think it's actually the second week, the 8th through the 12th. So getting ready for that.
First, I'd like to say thank you and appreciate being able to go to Kosovo. I thought it was a very eye-opening experience. I see it beneficial for us to join in that partnership even further than we already have. Secondly, I'd like to thank Jackie and Holly for the kind comments. I was just following the crowd. I had a meeting with the general director, who is the equivalent of the commissioner of all of Kosovo Police. 9,000 police officers Kosovo has. And I met with the colonel who is in charge of human resources. I could see her being the next general director for Kosovo Police, very sharp. We were the first visitors to ever visit their future Interpol office, brand new office. They opened it that day. Met with the academy in Vustri. Didn't get to be there very long because our driver kept saying, we gotta go, we gotta go. And that was the theme. We gotta go, we gotta go, we gotta go. But it was a very enjoyable trip. We made some great connections, and we did have a commitment where the general director wants to join or partner up with a memorandum of understanding. I'm working on my after action plan for Chief Staples, Chief McDaniel from Johnston, and Chief Dana Wingert for Des Moines. I was speaking on their behalf while I was over there. The State Patrol has shown an interest, but they don't want to commit yet. I think they want to see other police departments engaged. I met with the Department of Justice, called ICTAB. They're a funding source. I have a verbal commitment, but he said, I have bosses too, but he gets what he wants to do, and it's a quid pro quo. So if we can instruct them on some things, then they would foot the bill for most of the trip over.
Kim Heidemann didn't think they'd even get a meeting with ICTAP. So again, just like kudos to them that they made things happen.
So, and it was a very great trip. Eye-opening, humbling. I'm not afraid to say it. Part of it was emotional, just to see. I've been overseas before in serving the military and in Korea, and this was a completely eye-opening experience. So I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
We had a air ambulance come down last night. We closed a portion of Chatham Avenue. Life Flight came down and they presented a ground crew class for us. We haven't had Life Flight down for a long time, so that was really nice for our crew to be able to see the inner workings and talk about some safety features if we have to load a patient onto the aircraft. And the only other thing is that we did lose that full-time firefighter paramedic that we had talked about. We posted today. It's been posted a couple of days, right, Carrie?
Yeah.
And we're collecting applications to the 10th of August. So we hope to have somebody hired by September 1st. Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie.
Nothing for me tonight.
Ed.
No, I just want to echo the kudos for the folks that went over to Kosovo. And I was really impressed by the article in the paper, and I don't know who had a hand in writing that. But it was really good because it addressed what they accomplished. And I can remember, Mayor, when we first took the trip, and some people were saying, well, why are you going over there? Why are you doing that? Why are you? And so I think you do need to show the public the productivity of something and the reason why and the outcome of things that happen. So it was very well done, and I'm sure it contributed a lot to the relationship between the state as a whole in that country. There's no doubt in my mind it did, right? COVID got in the way. We'd might have been here earlier, maybe it made it better because we couldn't get it done for a year. Maybe that actually sweetened the pot a little bit, but well done. As far as the cost of stuff, both the other boards that I sit on for the city, right? We're starting to kind of do some things in bite-sized chunks now. kind of like the airport's talking about doing, right? A little bit now, come back next year, get a little bit more of it, because the cost is just so doggone expensive. I hope we don't suffer that, sometimes with different things, but it's possible we may have to look at that in the future, just depending on what happens.
Right.
And I guess lastly, also, I wanted to thank Gene. Usually when I read those number reports with a lot of numbers in them, I start yawning and, it's hard. But, the report that goes with, the bond report, and all the stuff that's attached to it was really very interesting, because I have never sat down and just thought in my mind, what's our community worth? I mean, the property, what's the community worth? And I was really surprised. I was impressed and I was surprised. The amount of growth in the community. I remember when I was police chief, right, and I first came here, and I mean, it was a very nice community, but it sure wasn't valued at that amount. You know what I mean? The growth has just been tremendous in the value that the community has. And it also makes you think about how responsible we are, right? The things that we're responsible for. I mean, as elected officials, let alone, the staff. It's pretty easy to screw stuff up, and it helps if you work with smart people. So I'm glad I work with a bunch of smart people, right? But it was very impressive. I got a lot out of it, and I appreciate that detail that was in there. And I can imagine how much work it is to pull all that stuff together. My God, unbelievable. Anyway, that's all I think.
All right, thank you. David.
I have nothing tonight. Thank you.
All right, Steph. Jim.
Well, just thank you for the vote on the city attorney position. That's a big change for me, but looking forward to it.
I think it's great. You were paying into Social Security too.
I think it's good. I do have, so Metro Advisory Council met a couple weeks ago. I have work meetings that I can't go, but this one they recorded. There's two topics in there. Primary topic is related to the WRA, where they talk about the phosphorus reclamation project that they're doing, which was interesting. There was also a discussion about fireworks. So if anybody would like to see that, I would be happy to forward that on to you.
Yeah, I'd be interested.
I
in
did
taking
just
pictures.
forward, like a summary of that onto everybody, just below that.
Did you do the video?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I'm not sure what was attached. I don't remember what was attached to the email I sent.
Did you add me into that too? Yes, you did. No, so I'll send the video. Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Video and password. So I will do that. And that's all I have. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion, second.
Motion by Livingston, seconded by Reba. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, opposed, same. We're adjourned at 6. Gee. 6:03. Wow.